My dears, let's talk about coping mechanisms that you didn't know you had and why it's important that you start recognizing them and being aware of them and how they might be the stumbling block to any changes that you want to make and especially living the life you want to. So here is what we were discussing today with one of my amazing clients is the topic of overwhelm, right? So a lot of things going on in her life, especially leaving the organization that she identified with for a long time, and also leaving the country, the duty station, and going home and going back home to the place where she hadn't lived for a long time as well. And a lot of those things, and coupled with different ideas, initiatives that she wants to work with, and then this feeling of overwhelm coming up, right? And as we were discussing this overwhelm, she was telling me that as soon as she starts having this overwhelm, then um, she feels like, okay, I'm too late to do that anyway. I'm too late to apply, or I'm too late to go for this opportunity, or I'm too late to respond to this email. And then what's the point? And then feeling like procrastinating and not doing anything, right? So, as we were discussing this, I wanted to show her what are the coping mechanisms that our brain tend to come up with to save energy, because overwhelm is already an inner state that might be using consuming a lot of energy, and because of a lot of changes happening and about uncertainties about the future, not safe, and all of these things. On top of that, if we add overwhelm, then our brains automatically go into how can we save energy and take care of you, right? And in order to do that, our brains come up with a quick solution in that moment. Even though, from a long term perspective, for where we want to go, this may not be a solution at all. But for our brain's survival, from the survival perspective, this is a great solution, which says it's too late, there's no point in doing it, and therefore stops us from doing the thing that we actually want to do. You can see how for every problem that we consider a problem, our brain come up with a, if you will, a temporary solution, even though we don't recognize it as a temporary solution, right? We recognize it as, oh, this is the truth, and then we don't even go and question that. But in fact, this is a coping mechanism of the brain to protect us, to keep us safe, and to uh, save energy. And in order to do that, our brain always comes up with a solution that it believes is a solution to save energy, but it may not be a solution to build the reality or the life that we want to go for, right? So you can see that, like, you can observe this across any problem that you feel you are facing. There will always be a solution that our brain offers, even though we may not see it as a solution, but we believe in it so instantly that we stop doing the thing that we want to. We just adopt that solution and say, oh, yes, it is too late. What's the point of doing it? And then we don't even pursue doing it, right? So you can see how that may be happening for every other situation as well. And this also oftentimes happen with humanitarians who are transitioning. They just have great ideas about, for instance, starting their own business, right? But then they get overwhelmed about whatever the situation going on. They research a lot, and then they feel like, oh my god, this is too much, or the market is saturated, or I should have started earlier and I'm too late, or whatever other reasons. Or even maybe we say I can't do that, and then the I can't do that becomes a solution for the brain to save energy. even though that's not the solution that we're searching for in terms of pursuing our ideas and transitioning. So, do you see how fascinating that we keep listening to our brain's energy solution, so to say, for saving energy, and we mistake that and we take that as a truth for how we can't go to the thing that we want to, right? So once you start realizing and observing within yourself how you usually treat problems, right? So how you treat problems of overwhelm, for instance, or how do you treat problems of uncertainty? How do you treat problems of fear? When you start observing whatever the ways your brain had proposed coping mechanisms in the past, you can start seeing the pattern of how your brain offered those solutions, not actually for the long term perspective. Your brain just offered those solutions to save energy in the moment when your brain is probably consuming a lot of energy, or to keep you safe in the moment, even though that was not supposed to be the solution that you were hoping for or pursuing anyway, right? But the purpose that I want to really highlight here is that the more you start seeing that your brain will always propose a solution and present it in a way that this is the only truth, right? So in the case of starting a business, a lot of humanitarians tell me that, oh, I'm not a business person, I can't do that, right? So that in the survival brain's perspective is a solution not to waste energy, not to waste time and all of those things, but that is not what would serve us long term, right? Because our desire is to be free and to be doing other things while we pursue also an activity that satisfies us. And for that long term thinking, this is not a solution, but this is a coping mechanism that your brain relies on so much automatically without even you probably questioning it. And as soon as we start seeing this as, oh, I see that for my brain, starting a business is a problem, or having overwhelm is a problem, and therefore in order to solve that problem temporarily, my brain just brings up a solution that says, oh, I can't do that, that says, oh, it's too late, or it's too dangerous, it's hard, and whatever it is. As soon as we start recognizing that it's just our brain wanting to come up with a quick solution to save energy, as soon as we see from that perspective, then we don't need to just accept this as the only truth and then keep using that solution to procrastinate, to not make decision, to not move on, and all of these things, right? Because currently that's really what's happening for many humanitarians, and understandably so, is that we're just using our brain's coping mechanism as a solution, in quotes. And the reason why I put it in quote is because in the moment when we feel unsafe and uncertain and using up a lot of energy, our brain scoping mechanism will sound like a solution, sound like an obstacle, sound like something that we can't solve, sounds like something that is impossible to solve. But that never meant to be a solution for a long-term perspective. That was meant to be in the moment, to fight the fire, so to say. And once we did fight the fire, then we can look at and question whether that should be our solution or not. And if it's not our solution, then what is the long-term solution that we're searching for, right? So I have talked about in so many episodes in the past where we have considered, for many humanitarians, I would say we have considered the system to be a solution for many problems, right? System to be a solution for our stability, our safety, our success, our life's problems. Maybe we even use systems to avoid our lives. We use systems to feel confident. All of this, I have done this as well. And then once that solution, so to say, for our lives has gone, then it becomes like a temporary, different ways to keep fighting the fire because we're not feeling safe, right? And oftentimes, equally as we made a mistake of thinking that the system was a solution to our lives and then realizing that it could never be. And now we might be also realizing that our brain will always want to bring up temporary or even like obstacles that for the survival brain is a solution, but they're actually not a solution for long term. So then, as we start distinguishing, okay, we don't have the system that we used to rely on and believe that that was a solution. So we can't have that as a solution to our lives, right? We also realize that our brain's coping mechanism for survival can't be a long term solution because our brain in the moment is just trying to help us not be too overwhelmed and get into a panic mode. So therefore, our brain immediately comes up with something like, "Well, you can't do that." Something like, "It's too hard." Something like, "You've never done this before." Something like, "What's the point of doing it anyway?" Right? And these sound like solution for our brain from the survival perspective. And that way, we just stop the overwhelm. And once we stop the overwhelm, we still need to think about, okay, what is the long term that we're wanting to go for and how we want to do that. And for that thinking, then obviously we need to start seeing our survival brains coping mechanisms not really a solution or not really as a truth on its own, but rather as a momentary way of fighting fire. And once we fought the fire, now we need to think about, okay, does this really, does this obstacle really stopping me from going for what I want, or I'm just using this conveniently because I'm just scared, which is very understandable, and I'm using this conveniently to not go and challenge myself, right? So we were also discussing this with my clients that I mentioned earlier, that this often also happens in public speaking engagements. And you've probably noticed this as well, right? If we go for public speaking, especially to an audience that we're not comfortable with, let's say we are maybe comfortable with, I don't know, 10, 15 people of audiences, but now we're speaking to 100, 200 people, or maybe 500 people, right? And she will be speaking to a large audience of people as well. And we were discussing about how her brain will immediately tell her a solution to that problem, the fear of speaking in front of large audiences or whatever the emotions that come up. Her brain will propose a solution, something like, "Oh, you shouldn't accept this," or what do you know about this, or "This is going to be hard and don't do it," or "You probably need to think too much about it and it's not the right time now," right? All of this your brain will offer as solutions in that moment, even though you will see this as like the ultimate truth, but for your brain to keep you safe, that will sound like a solution. And because it sounds like a solution, it's very easy for us to just get on board and agree with it, right? And because we agree with it, then we start having trouble to justify why we should still go and pursue it, right? And that becomes often the problem, is that we're a assuming the temporary solutions that our brain comes up with as the truth, and b, we're not challenging them, therefore we're just saying, "Oh, these are obstacles that we can't solve." And then we're not going beyond solving those. We're just saying that, oh, this is just how it is, and maybe I should just um, refuse this offer, or maybe I should just not speak in front of those people. Maybe I'm not that qualified. Maybe, and then we come up with a lot of our own justifications and explanations as to why we can't do that thing. Right? And it's all happening because of those coping mechanisms that our brain uses automatically. Every one of our brain, I believe, uses automatically to solve the overwhelm in the moment, to solve the anxiety in the moment, to solve the fear in the moment. And it serves to save that energy. But knowing this, I'm hoping will help you start seeing that, oh, my brain needs to do that for my survival, and that's amazing, but still I want to build that long-term future. Therefore, I don't need to take this as a the ultimate truth. I don't need to take it as this means I can't solve it. I don't need to take this as, oh, now I can't speak in front of those people, therefore let me just refuse it and then stay safe. You don't need to do any of those things, right? So for whatever the transitioning that you're going through, whether this is work wise, whether this is personally, whether this is health wise, whatever the transitioning you're going through, start noticing whatever the problem your brain says is the problem. You start noticing how your brain will also come up with answers as to how you can do that thing. And that for your brain is considered a solution in that moment. And that's okay, because we need to regulate our nervous system before we move on to long-term projects. So therefore, don't take it as the truth or as something that you can solve, but rather, oh, I see that my brain's coping mechanism to keep me safe and to keep saving energy and all of this, I can see that. But let me challenge those solutions or those obstacles, so to say, and see how far I can actually solve them to keep going to pursue what I want long term, right? That's really the goal for me to trying and illustrating this. So, my dears, if you would like to work with me on this, absolutely come coach with me. I hope that I was able to convey the message in a way that you are able to use and observe for your own life, and also start seeing that, oh, if my brain says I have never done this before, or I can't do this, it's hard, too late, don't do it. If your brain says that, that's just an indication of in the moment solving the emotion, but it doesn't mean that it's the ultimate truth and you can't do anything about it. So, have a beautiful start of the week. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.